Back here to join the action once again. Steve Garza, thank you for joining the show. And the question was Flex 1, Pacheco, Hopkins, Njoku, QJ. I'm starting Jonnu in the tight end spot. If I were to pick, I'm assuming that's what the question is. Out of those guys, I would probably go with Pacheco. I'm a big fan advocate also of the running backs over the wide receivers. I've come to learn that this season with my inability to draft running backs as well in fantasy. So I would definitely lean towards the running backs because I mean, who do the Chiefs play this week? I don't even know. Who do they play? They play the Chargers. So yeah, I mean, I think I would go with Pacheco there. I would go with Pacheco. That game's going to be close, I feel like. I mean, all the Chiefs games are close. So I think Pacheco, despite the injury, I'm feeling pretty confident about him. That's just me, though. Take that for what you will. But on the regular scheduled show here, the Seahawks game and the Jets game. One that might not, again, seem too exciting, but this was a pretty big game for the Seattle Seahawks, and it makes me think, kind of a little bit like the Buccaneers, are the Seahawks now not the best team in the NFC West, but are they playing the best football right now? And I think those two things are very different. They sound similar, but they are different things in my mind. So, getting to it and getting to this game, Seattle, they faced a 14-point deficit early on in this game, and traveling across the country to play New York, a pretty bad start, you could say, right? Obviously, but after coming off of their bye, they win their third consecutive game after that bye week, like I said, and the final score ended up being 26-21 in favor of Seattle, and they are now still one game up on the Rams and on the Arizona Cardinals in that division. And why that matters, right? Why I kind of asked that question about the Seahawks, about whether or not they're just playing the best football right now. Not the best team, they're just playing the best football, is because playing the best football at this point in the year, you could make an argument is probably the only thing that matters. Not really, blowing teams out or getting to, other things, right, that goes with, the team and different aspects of it, right? Just make sure that you're able to play your best football at this point. You're getting to your peak at this point of the year rather than, falling flat, if you would. That's really the most important thing that you need to consider at this point in the year. And again, I emphasize that the Seahawks, in my opinion, are not the best team in that division. I would say the Rams are better in terms of talent and fully healthy, probably the 49ers, but the Seahawks are playing the best football right now, and I think you saw it in this game, which we'll get to in just a little bit. But on the other side of things, the Jets, I mean, different conversations, right? When you're talking about the Jets and you're talking about the Seahawks, obviously the Jets lose their third game in a row since defeating the Houston Texans back on October 31st. And, in this game, they started off with that lead, but the first half was definitely the most positive part of this game for them because they were held scoreless the entire second half. And you had other storylines like Geno Smith facing off against his former team. Some controversy with the referees also adds excitement to it because on the game-winning drive that ultimately ended with Zach Charbonnet scoring a touchdown to give the Seahawks that lead, there was 4 penalty flags called on the New York Jets defense, and there was 4 called on that drive and 12 in total for the Jets on Sunday, which I believe DJ Reed said after the game that that the refs should be like ashamed of themselves or something like that. Clearly, it was a big deal, right? I didn't catch every play of this game, but that is a huge thing that obviously would sway the outcome of this game. So that was a bummer for the Jets overall, but I'm sure obviously the Seahawks aren't complaining. And there was a lot of crazy things that happened in this game. You can't forget about, again, I hope I'm saying this name right, Kene Nwangwu. Kene Nwangwu had a 99-yard kickoff return touchdown for the New York Jets, which not only, just blew the roof off of MetLife Stadium at that point in time, but you also had the Seahawks have a crazy play of their own with Leonard Williams. He intercepted Aaron Rodgers somehow, a defensive lineman, if you were unaware who Leonard Williams was. He returned an interception 92 yards all the way back to the end zone, obviously, and that made history in it of itself. Leonard Williams, his interception was the longest in NFL history by a defensive lineman, and also he was the first player since 1982 with multiple sacks, a pick six, and a block kick in one game in the NFL. So that was pretty cool, and again, it was just complete madness in this game. If you look at the game a little bit closer, there was 14 total drives by both teams in a wild first half that was 16-21 at halftime in favor of the Jets. Then you had the 5 penalties towards the Seahawks compared to the Jets' 12, so that was a big discrepancy there. Both of these teams had 2 turnovers that they forced, so it was pretty even at that standpoint. And in the difference makers, or what's supposed to be the difference makers in these games, are the quarterbacks, or the veterans, the legendary kind of guys that do make up some of these teams, right? You look at Seattle with DK, JSN, Leonard Williams in his own right as well. Devin Witherspoon is an exciting young player. They have a lot of playmakers, but the Jets have the legendary quarterback, right, Aaron Rodgers, and it's another game where, yes, it is disappointing. Yes, it is lackluster. I think those would be pretty accurate descriptions of it. But really, it was unimpressive, right? But there was just the fact that there was a couple missed throws that, usually he makes. Usually he makes those kind of throws. And I've been pretty hesitant about, just saying like, oh, it's Aaron Rodgers, right? They stink because it's Aaron Rodgers. He's not playing to the Hall of Fame level that he should be, but I've been pretty hesitant to hold off on that. But again, in this game where he is missing those throws, and it just feels like it's uncomfortable in this offense in that uniform. I think he continues to look worse and worse in that Jets uniform. And then when you consider the fact that, Davante Adams and Garrett Wilson, right, 2 phenomenal weapons that you can have at the quarterback position. Davante Adams was targeted 12 times and Garrett Wilson was targeted 10 times, and both of them had 5 receptions. So it doesn't exactly scream efficiency, or it doesn't exactly scream that this offense was just humming down the field in the entirety of the game. It suggests and it kind of emphasizes those struggles in the second half because they weren't able to put any points up at all in the second half. So those struggles on offense, that disconnect obviously is there with Aaron for whatever reason with the offense and the receivers, Davante, Garrett Wilson, really Breece Hall too. It just feels like it's not all there for whatever reason. And again, I don't like saying that it's just simple as Aaron Rodgers just isn't the same guy, because I think it has to be more complicated than that. So, I mean, it's the same story with the Jets so far, or at least through the last couple weeks. But it is what it is right now on that standpoint. But, you look at Seattle, and going back to that question, because I think it is pretty interesting, because they are, to me, on that question, I believe they are playing the best football. But again, I don't think they're the best team in that division, right? If you look at certain positions, right, the wide receivers in this division, you have DK, Jackson Smith and Jigba, and we'll throw Tyler Lockett in there, right? Then you have Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, Demarcus Robinson, you could say. Then Debo, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, Juwan Jennings, right? And the Arizona Cardinals, Michael Wilson and Marvin Harrison Jr. and Trey McBride. DK, Jackson Smith and Jigba, he's had a very good year. And Tyler Lockett, I would probably have them like second at most. You can make an argument with Debo and Brandon Ayuk, but I think Puka and Cooper Kupp are more talented and are better receivers than both of those two guys. So that's one thing. The quarterback position, obviously, I think a lot of people would take Matthew Stafford over all those quarterbacks probably. So that's the quarterback position. The running back position, same thing. Christian McCaffrey, Kenneth Walker, James Conner, and who else am I forgetting? Kyron Williams. At most, maybe Kenneth Walker's probably, again, 2 at that point, but he's not the best, right? And then you could probably make the argument as we go down the line of positions, right? So that kind of just suggests my point that the Seahawks are not this stacked team. They're not the best team in that division, I think, pretty convincingly. But they're just playing the best football right now. Their defense is a lot improved. Leonard Williams, he had a monster game. Devin Witherspoon and that secondary is playing a lot better. They're getting turnovers. They're getting to the quarterback especially too. And on the offensive side of the ball, they're not hurting themselves with the turnovers. The running game isn't that great, which I will point out. But, Jackson Smith-Njigba is turning into a very reliable receiver. And he's nowhere near his ceiling, obviously, but he is making big strides, which is great for them. And DK Metcalf is still doing his thing. So they are definitely improving, and they're all, it feels like, hitting their flow at this point in the season, which is great to see if you're a Seahawks fan. And it just feels like credit to Mike Macdonald, too, because he has a lot to do with this. For how disciplined this team looks and just how they just look like they're in stride right now. Like everything is hitting for them when and where it's supposed to. And for such a young coach like Mike Macdonald, to get this team where they are right now with a couple doubts heading into this year, and the division, at the beginning of the year, they were probably penciled in to finish at best third, probably, with the 49ers and the Rams probably having, being ahead of them in most people's predictions. So, again, credit to them. They're playing the best football right now, in my opinion. Not the best team, and I think that just makes it even better, I would say, for, the way the playoffs stack out. Because whoever wins and whoever is playing better, like the Seahawks are, is probably going to be the only one to make the playoffs, because I don't think the Commanders are going to drop out. The Packers and the Vikings are definitely going to be in. So there's only one spot left, or maybe one or two for the NFC West. So it's just kind of like how hot you can get at this point in the year. And if the Rams can kind of step it up a little bit, with their talent, they already beat the Seahawks. Maybe they could steal that spot away from them. The NFC West is insane right now. So those games are just going to get better as we move along. But we're going to preview Week 14 here a little bit. Not the full thing like we do on Thursdays and Fridays, but we're going to preview one game, the Falcons and the Minnesota Vikings game. Kirk Cousins playing against his former team. I had to talk about it. There's a lot going into this. There's a lot riding on it for both sides. So we're going to preview it, do the whole process when we return after this break.